When there is some magic you don't understand, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Great Magician. Welcome to our show!
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Trickbusters show. I'm Gran Puertolas.
And I'm Maggie Muñoz. Today we'll analyze just for you an amazing illusion.
But for that, we'll have to let speak the engineer and the skeptic we have in us. Hey, you look like a real engineer.
It's normal, I'm an engineer. And you look like a real geek.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. And now we are properly dressed. Let's start working. Imagine for 1 minute a magician who'd want to make you believe he can actually make a train car vanish. Huge and prettily polished, weighing more than 10,000 pounds and surrounded by more than 20 people holding hands. Imagine the same magician making the train levitate for a few seconds in the air and then withdrawing the sheet that was covering it. Wouldn't you be astonished if at this precise moment the train car disappeared in the air just in front of your eyes? Well, we wouldn't. Remember, magic doesn't exist, only tricks.
Trickbusters! Okay, let's do a trick. Say stop.
Stop! I see the 9 of spades. Oh. But remember, magic doesn't exist.
Only tricks.
Trickbusters!
Firstly, let's analyze this illusion from a rational point of view. 1. The train car would be a real one, since the magician would walk in it and through it freely. 2. The train car would have to be covered by a sheet. It's impossible to make something disappear without hiding it first. It's a fundamental rule in magic. Hiding, hiding, hiding. 3. The magician would insist on the weight of the train car, so you are misdirected and misled and think the carriage would be raised in the air, when actually the car would never leave the ground. 4. The magician would shoot the scene from the same angle all the time, so you cannot see what happens on the opposite side when the sheet covers the train. 5. Finally, the magician would put some blinding lights in the important place he wants your eyes to avoid. Let's our common sense talk. It's physically impossible to levitate things unless a 10,000 pound train car. Cables to lift such a weight exist indeed, but are too wide to be invisible for the human eye. Thus, in this illusion, the train will never leave the ground. The fact the magician would insist on the weight is just a misdirection to force you to believe the train will actually rise from the ground. Well now, if the train doesn't levitate, it must disappear before the sheet rises in the air. When do you see the train, and when do you stop seeing it? Now you see it, now you don't see it. And which is the side you actually don't see? In which direction does the train go? I'm sure you've guessed. The back side. You just have to follow the railways. They will drive you just where the train is. No more complicated than that. Just in this dark area, beside a great blinding projector. Look how the sheet takes the shape of the train car and keeps it. The sheet is actually put on a rigid structure that has the same shape of the train car's roof. The sheet must be lifted enough so the train doesn't drag it when it goes. In order to dissimulate the rising of the sheet, the cameraman has to move the camera upwards and downwards, so you don't have any reference. With a steady and fixed camera, you would clearly see the sheet is lifted. Once the sheet covers entirely the train car, this one leaves the set by the opposite way while the magician is performing some ridiculous movements to entertain the spectator. Since it is not a locomotive and has not personal and individual propulsion, the train car must be tied to some resistant cables and pulled back by some powerful machinery. The audience, who's in it, just have to lose hands, let the train passes and come back to their initial position. Now, invisible threads lift the sheet, which is not so heavy as the train, and then pulling it, the train disappears, because it never was here. The structure the sheet was put on remains invisible, since it is black, and the sky black behind hide it. Black on black is invisible. Well, now you know. If any magician performs one day this great illusion, you know how he could do it.
Think rationally.
Indeed. Ask yourself the good and the basic question, what is physically possible?
And what is physically impossible?
And you'll become soon a great trick buster. Stop believing!
Magic. When there is some magic you don't understand, who you gonna call? Trickbusters!
Иди сюда, иди сюда. Эй, извините, пожалуйста. Вы хотите смотреть фокус?
Магии не существует, только фокусы.